Hi. So it's been quite the weekend. It's been it's been it's been a weekend where I needed to do an it's been, okay? Um so there are going to be three types of people starting to watch this video. There's going to be people who know what's going on, people who don't know what's going on, and people who are already anticipating being assholes to me. I'm going to address the first. People who know what's going on. Darlings, hold patient with me for a little bit, although I'll try to put some timestamps in the description for you. This video is going to be split up into three parts. The first part is explaining what's going on to the second group of people. So the first part is explaining this video. The second part is going to be me reading the letter, which, if you know what's going on, you know what I'm talking about. The purpose of this is to be able to clip it so that, you know, it can be shared in video format, which I recognize will bring more assholes to me. And I'm just simply too old to care. After I read the letter, I'm going to explain how you can share it, like my recommendations for how to share it most effectively. I have a written up fans and bubble post, as well as recommendations for both of those platforms on how to share it, if you so desire. So I'll give just some directions on how to do that if you're somebody who wants to do that. There will also be more information in the description for that. And then the last part of this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the fuck did we get here. So this is a little bit of disinformation part 2, actually, but I think it's worthwhile to go through, like, how did things get this fucking bad? Why are things this fucking bad? I think a lot of people have been really shocked by how bad things got this weekend. And I wasn't. Things actually did not get as bad as I expected them to be. So we're going to talk a little bit about, like, how we got to this point. That's all very confusing stuff for the second group of people, who are the group of people who don't know what's going on. So, if you don't know what's going on and you're here, you probably saw the title of this video, which means that you know that this is about Stray Kids and Harry Potter. We're going to start big and move small. There are, like I said, there's going to be a group of people who just want to be assholes to me, who want to harass me, or who want to be bigots, or who want to be defensive, and in being defensive are going to act like bigots. If you are simply just not somebody who cares to learn things, move on. Don't waste all of our time. Just don't. There's going to be a lot of people who have some idea of context around Harry Potter and the Harry Potter franchise, but who don't have a lot of information. The letter I'm going to be reading will give you a lot more information. So, to start big and go small, at its core, the Harry Potter franchise, again, this is going to sound like a really intense statement, and obviously based on this statement, this video is going to get rough and bad. Sorry, that's the world. The Harry Potter franchise directly and immediately funds trans genocide. Like, straight line. Harry Potter franchise, funding of trans genocide. It's not, like, vague. It's not indirect. It's a direct line. A lot of people are not aware of that. Even people who know how terrible J.K. Rowling is, they're not aware of how much impact the Harry Potter franchise itself and the movement of money through the Harry Potter franchise is motivating legislation in the UK that is enabling trans genocide, and it will eventually enable queer genocide, and is also deeply, I mean, it's inherently misogynistic, but it is also deeply impactful and misogynistic against cis women as well. Like, the doors have already opened for it because of the Harry Potter franchise. That's a really intense statement. I promise it will be explained. So on a smaller level, I don't think Stray Kids knows this. I just want to be really clear. I don't think Stray Kids knows this. There is not a single part of this video that is about like canceling Stray Kids or being mad at the kids or anything like that. That is a wild narrative that has been fully made up, and we will talk more about that in the disinformation portion of this video. But Stray Kids obviously loves Harry Potter. Harry Potter is really big globally. You know, I know that Han has like familial ties to the franchise. The kids love Harry Potter. They reference it a lot. They referenced it again in London. They were in the UK. This makes sense. This was really disappointing and caused a lot of hurt feelings, and also actively created a really unsafe atmosphere for a time period at the London concert for some gender nonconforming and trans folks. Because Harry Potter has become a dog whistle for transphobes. This will be explained more in the letter, and this will be explained more in the disinformation portion. But afterwards, obviously they keep bringing up Harry Potter. I think a lot of us have really been hoping, like passively, that at some point they would just magically become educated on the matter, just like by being chronically online. And it hasn't happened. So we sort of started talking on threads about how to make this happen. Like, how do we as a community do the right kind of activism to do the education portion ourselves? This is obviously something that certain communities are much better at in K-pop than other communities. The Black K-pop community has learned some really effective ways to do organizing to get information and education to K-pop idols. But it's really not something that I think a lot of like queer, especially, white queer or racialized in a type of way that has not been as like exploited by K-pop, or as, required as much organization as a cultural like requirement for survival. It's just not really something that a lot of people knew how to do. So I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to like organize. That's just like how it works. And I knew that this would cause a mess, because bringing up Harry Potter always does, and it did. And so for those of you who, you are learning about the context of what's happening right now, Threads has been kind of a nightmare. It's been really hard. I've been okay, I think, for a number of reasons. Partially that I expected it to all go to shit. Partially because I'm a larger account. Partially because the way I approach things is really gentle, until somebody pisses me off, in which case there have been a couple times I've been less than gentle. That's okay. They deserved it. But there's been a lot of bullying and harassing of queer stays, especially, or allies, but especially queer stays on Threads. And there's been a lot of disinformation about what's happening, which ultimately, again, what it comes down to what's happening is that we're trying to figure out how to like provide stray kids with education about how harmful the Harry Potter franchise has been to queer folks and will continue to be, and that we'd just really like them to stop mentioning it. Like, obviously there's a line in Walking on Water. We're not expecting them to like re-record it or anything like that. We just like them to stop talking about it, because every time they talk about it, it results in, it results in a lot of things, and I'll talk more to that in the letter. But yeah, like, anytime a trans person mentions feeling disappointed about it, it just collects this huge line of them being harassed. It results in people trying to donate to anti-queer charities out of spite. It results in, I mean, just the most mask off, nasty versions of humanity. Because people would just really like trans people to shut the fuck up. And that's what it comes down to. That sucks. To the last version of people who are not here to learn and who are just here to harass me, because I know that there are those people. There are people hate watching. There are people here just to be bigots, because that's what happens anytime Harry Potter is mentioned these days. Fuck off, dude. I don't give a shit. You're not gonna get the attention that you so desperately want, you fucking turf. Like, I'm not gonna humor you. I'm just going to screenshot your shit, report you, and block you. Or I'm going to decide that you're worth me being cruel for the sake of cruelty's sake. And I assure you, you don't want that, because I will emotionally eviscerate you. You absolute, pathetic, lifeless cretin of a worm. Okay? Okay. People who don't know how fucked talking about Harry Potter gets are going to think that that was a really intense, like, statement, but it gets fucked, and people are vile. People are just absolutely vile, and they hate genderqueer people. They hate trans people. They hate queer people. They don't want to say that they do, but they do. They would prefer that we all die than that they have to stop talking publicly about a 25-year-old franchise. I'm not mad at the kids. There are some stays I am fucking mad at. Okay. So I've done the intro. I'm going to read this letter. And then I'm probably going to take a break because I need to do some work. And also, this will be emotional. So this is a letter to stray kids. I do have a translation of it as well. Like I said, I will give instructions on how to access the letters and what I would recommend on how to post them in order to try to get stray kids' attention just to read it, because that's really just the goal. Is we want to know that we have done what we can to ensure that they know this information, and that they, that if they are still talking about Harry Potter after getting the information, we can make assessments on how we feel about standing the group, knowing that they know this information. I believe in stray kids, and I don't think they will. But we'll find out if we make sure that we're trying to get it to them. Okay. Gonna let this plane fly by, which might be a little bit of me like putting on. I'm worried I'm gonna cry. Turns out it's been a long weekend, and I am talking about genocide. Okay. For stray kids who make us stay. This is just one person writing a letter, but encouraging others to use it, encouraging them to add and change it as they need to communicate themselves. This is one person writing a letter, but I know I speak for many people, especially those in the LGBTQ plus community as I write this. This is one person writing a letter, but woven into it is the love, however messy it can be, of more people than any of us can really fathom. It is always hard to tell people that they've caused you pain, harm even. It is harder, I think, when those people are strangers. Strangers you love so deeply, but only in the ways you can love an unknown. How do you explain with compassion, with love, with the hope of mutual growth, when those you hope to grow with don't even know your name. It is even harder to speak to that pain when we have to say that this hurt has been repeated, that there's not one instance of pain, but many over time. It's hard to admit that we have failed to ensure you were aware of the hurt that's been caused, a hurt that's not about something as silly as ceviche or as selfish as wanting more screen time for a specific member, nor as presumptuous as to assume you are being stifled by others. And after saying all that, it will feel overdramatic to admit that this letter is about Harry Potter. It will be hard to fully explain how exactly a childhood intellectual property results in such extreme statements. I will try anyways. On April 20, nope, not April 26th. On April 16th, 2025, Joanne Rowling wrote on Twitter, "I love it when a plan comes together. Hashtag Supreme Court, hashtag women's rights." This came the same day that the UK Supreme Court made the determination that transgender women do not fit the legal definition of a woman under the equality law, meaning that trans women in the UK cannot benefit from the equality law of 2010. This dramatically affects services for the most at-risk trans folks, such as access to domestic violence services. And this was part of Rowling's larger plan to destroy trans women in the UK. She donated €70,000, a little over 113 million won, to the lawsuit that pushed for this ruling. 113 million won that she has because of money from the Harry Potter series. Exactly 3 months later. Exactly 3 months later. On July 16th, 2025, you, Stray Kids, stood in London, where this devastating ruling was made, and asked the audience who else liked Harry Potter. One friend of mine heard behind them two people chanting, "JK, JK, JK." Regardless of your vague words and confetti and small acts of solidarity, sometimes we must suddenly wonder if you do actually care about the stay who are being targeted, harassed, and even killed due to the actions of certain celebrities and governments. It is hard to admit that many stay feel not just uncomfortable but unsafe. That your London concerts resulted not just in many queer and genderqueer folks feeling not just unsafe and afraid at your concert, but resulted in harassment and attacks online for talking about that feeling. That this harassment will only escalate unless we stay quiet. But that's okay. Sometimes it's worth it. And in this case, it is, because unfortunately, this is only a microcosm of the problem. So let's go backwards in time. Let's see how we get here, because the problem is much worse and much deeper than those €70,000. 2018. This is the first time Joanne Rowling likes an anti-trans tweet. At this point, we can still separate the author from the content. At this point, there is plausible deniability. At this point, we don't know the monstrosity that she personally will create, fund, and perpetuate. But it will happen a few more times, escalating in intensity of who she follows, who she likes, who she retweets. Eventually, we'll get to 2020, where things start to go really, really wrong. She says that trans-affirming surgeries are a new kind of conversion therapy for young gay people. By this time, the rhetoric has gotten so bad that several actors from the movies break their relationship with her publicly, including Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and Daniel Radcliffe themselves. She also, in 2020, publishes a new book under her pseudonym about a male serial killer who dresses as a woman, leveraging one of the oldest anti-trans horror tropes. By 2022, the rhetoric has escalated significantly. At this point, the International Quidditch Association changes its name to Quadball due to the desire to distance itself from Rowling's continual and extreme transphobia and relationships with well-known anti-trans activists, and her use of social media to pressure the UK government to not pass legislation that would protect trans people. In 2024, Rowling is named in a lawsuit by Iman Khalif, an Algerian boxer, and it could be Imani. I did not look up the correct pronunciation of this name. I apologize. I should have done that before I read this letter. Imani Khalif, an Algerian boxer who Rowling had claimed was a transgender woman and pushed her many, many followers to harass due to this false claim. Rowling had accused Khalif of enjoying the distress of a woman he's just punched in the head. Rowling celebrates Donald Trump's win as president because of his agenda. She further attacks those she perceives as trans women, whether celebrity names or small accounts, and directs her followers to also harass them. She claims that trans kids do not exist. In 2025, as earlier mentioned, in April, she donated to For Women Scotland, which works to pass anti-trans legislation explicitly. A press release from the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention that condemns For Women Scotland is attached to this letter. In May of this year, she announced on X that she will be using her vast wealth to found JK Women's Fund, saying it offers legal funding support to individuals and organizations fighting to retain women's sex-based rights in the workplace, in public life, and in protected female spaces. The goal of this organization is to eradicate trans women, not just from public life, but eventually completely, because that's the direction that this goes. Do I need to say more? There's more I could say. I could say that even Pedro Pascal has said not to buy a single Harry Potter thing ever, and boycott all Harry Potter shows and parks. I could talk about how talking about Harry Potter has become a dog whistle for people who are anti-trans, meaning that trans and genderqueer people no longer can trust those who openly love the IP. I could talk about how fans of hers are known for attacking and harassing people who criticize her online. I could add the screenshots of the stay who say, "You people are too sensitive, and the world doesn't bend to your will," and try to mock, belittle, and stalk those of us who express sadness or disappointment when you, so often our safe space, bring up this IP that has been destroying us yet again. But I hope I don't need to. I have to hold hope that what I've already said is horrific enough. Because now we understand all that money that she gains, it goes towards an attempt to fully genocide trans people. That's the direction this goes. And we have to know. Do you not know? Or do you not care? We assume you just don't know. We have to believe that. But that means now we must ensure that you do know. Because we deserve to know that if you bring up Harry Potter, when you encourage others to enjoy it, when you make jokes and spend time on it, when you reference it in the songs we want to love, We deserve to know that it's because your trans fans are not as important to you as your love of this media. Or we can wait and never hear of this IP again from y'all, and know that you do care about a deeply marginalized group who makes up a huge part of the fan base you love. As a separate concern, it's not just fear for us, it's fear for you. What if she finds a clip of you all enjoying this media and discovers how famous you are? She believes that support of her IP supports her beliefs. Would she start to be a stay? Would she claim that you agree with her beliefs? Would you become stained by her bloody hands? And would it be possible to ever really remove that stain? So often it takes so little to destroy so much. And with you, we only ever want to be created. We all understand it's hard. Some of us have known this IP, this franchise, since many of you weren't even born yet. Some of us grew up with it and had special interests in it. It is painful to know what it's doing to the world, and it's painful to have let it go. It's not to say people aren't allowed to still love it in private spaces where it can't do harm, in ways that doesn't give Rowling a cent of money. You can still love it, but for the sake of your fans, please love it quietly and without funding or encouraging funding of it. That's all we ask. Please simply do not speak of it again. We know that you likely can't respond to this. You likely can't speak directly about this harm and pain, and we're not asking for an apology from you, unless these are things you have known and simply have not cared about, in which case I do not think an apology would be truly sufficient to soothe that hurt. All we want is to not feel this pain from you again. I've added sources to the bottom of this letter if you'd like to read any more about any of this. We love you, and we're so grateful that you love us too. With a gentle warmth, a fan hoping to always stay. That letter is in a Google Drive. I will share a link to the Google Drive. One stay, who has been asked to be credited simply as Elodie, has translated the letter, and I've added that translation to the letters in two parts. Well, I actually haven't added it yet. I don't know if I'm going to add it as a separate document or at the bottom of that letter. In the same Google Drive folder, I have a how-to for posting on Fans and Bubble. On Fans, this includes a short message directing to read screenshots of either the original letter or the translation, and screenshots are added in the folder as well. And I have vetted to ensure that the post can be made on Fans, that it doesn't get blocked by any of the censors. For Bubble, I have written a series of 3 30-character messages with links to the letter, because you can't sense images on Bubble. You can obviously alter any of these posts as you see fit, and obviously if you have more than 3 30-character messages on Bubble, you can adjust that as well. You are free to make a copy of the letter and change it into your own words. I just ask that you do not refer back to me as having endorsed a letter I haven't written or seen. I just don't want to. I don't want myself to be associated with an edited letter. I spent quite a bit of time making sure that that was written in a way that felt restorative, healing, and just. And it would only take a few small changes for it to not necessarily align with my values and how I want to communicate. So if you make a copy and you don't refer back to the original letter, just don't bring me into it. So yeah, I will post the link to the drive that has all of that information in it. And you are free to share on whatever platforms in whatever way you deem necessary. I will clip the part of the video wherein I read the letter. I just figure any ways to bring visibility will help. That is how this type of activism works, is that we just, another piece of instruction that I wrote in the drive is you can mail a letter to JYPE. You can't mail gifts, so don't mail anything larger than a letter, but you can mail a letter to JYPE, and I do give the address to send that to. Yeah, this is just how trying to get information to people works. I know it's a long letter, but it's a lot of education. It's a lot of information. For those of you who weren't aware of this, maybe take a break. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of difficult information. And there's a lot worse out there. I know One Stay has been thinking about, I don't know if they're doing it. I can't. I can't. I refuse to. It's simply. But I know that One Stay I was talking to was thinking about collecting screenshots of some of Rowling's most horrific statements. And if they end up doing that, I will add those screenshots to the drive as well. You know, obviously, like, they're separating art and artist, but first of all, that works a lot better when they're dead and they're not doing horrible things, right? If Lovecraft was alive, I would not be reading Lovecraft. I would not be running Lovecraftian horror D&D games. I wouldn't be doing that, because he was a fucking awful person, especially if he was alive and not shutting the fuck up, right? Rowling really could have taken a page out of Gaiman's book. Gaiman has fucked off. We haven't heard a goddamn word out of him since the whole thing happened. And Gaiman was a much worse loss than Rowling. Gaiman, would very publicly stand up for human rights. And it's devastating to know what he's done to people. And strangely, Gaiman fans have been willing to just also stop fucking talking about his work. Joanne didn't decide to do that. And she's pulled out of charities in order to donate to more anti-trans funds. Like I said in the letter, she's creating her own. And the legislation that she is personally pushing to happen, and successfully doing so, is causing huge downstream ripple effects in the UK and will cause ripple effects in other places. It's really awful. It's really, really terrible. And, a lot of people are like, well, they're just enjoying, stray kids are just enjoying it. They're not, necessarily spending money on it. First of all, we don't know that. But second of all, since when do idols have to endorse something for people to spend money on it? Like, people buy the same, they spend hundreds of dollars on the same t-shirts that somebody wore to an airport. Yeah, of course they're going to hear the kids talking about Harry Potter and take it as, oh, maybe shut up, phone. Maybe I want to go rewatch those movies, and instead of rewatching old DVDs, they're gonna, go to a channel that is still paying dividends on the movies. Maybe people who haven't read the books yet go out and buy the books, and they don't buy them from a secondhand store. And, you know, it's not like the books were exactly great pieces of literature. And I really recommend, for people who don't know much about, like, some of the deep embedded racism and sexism and, like, issues of abuse and things like that in the books, to listen to the podcast Witch Please. I think it's from like 2014 or 2016. I listened to it basically when it came out, and it was one of my favorite podcasts. And it was really, really enlightening. And that was, of course, before JK started to go mask off. But once you start to see it, it started to be like, oh, I see how she went mask off, you know? I've also just seen a lot of people on threads straight up be like, basically say the kids shouldn't care about you people. The kids don't care about you people. That, God, it makes me really mad. It makes me really mad. It's also just insufferable. It also just, like, is silly. Like, I have been indirectly called, and, like, do it to my fucking face if you're gonna subtweet me. Fucking losers. I have been called a fake stay so many times, which is so funny. I have a podcast. Oh yeah, I spend hours on writing this in-depth letter that required me to go research something that I have worked actively hard to take out of my view. Right? I have worked so hard to take Harry Potter discourse out of my life. So yeah, I've spent, you know, 18 hours this week managing this discourse because I don't love Stray Kids. It's so silly. It's also really bad. So, like, a little bit more of the what's going on. Like I said, I have been fairly well insulated. I've been fairly well insulated, I think, for a few reasons. Yeah, I've had some people, whatever. There's like a couple people in particular who are just dedicated to being trolls right now. I've said some truly, truly awful things. Have tried to tell a bunch of queer people to go kill themselves. Called me a bitch and a cunt, which is very funny because, like, kind of unironically, my pronouns are bitch. Like, I'd far prefer someone to be like, oh yeah, you see bitch over there, and then be like, oh yeah, you see the girl over there? Nah. My gender is much closer to bitch than it is to female, and I am not joking. So that was very funny. But, like, yeah, I've had a few people try to say shit directly to me. Mostly they shut up and go away really quickly, and I'm protected for a few reasons. One, on Threads, at least I have a decent following. It's tiny outside of Threads, but, like, Threads is tiny. So, two, I'm very articulate, and being articulate is frightening for trolls because it makes you less vulnerable. Like, I fully read comments and then I call out the biggest cognitive dissonance portion of them and make people explain it, and it really, really bothers them and makes them really angry. So, um, you know, people don't come at me anymore. um, but, you know, and this is the way that harassment campaigns work. It's a lot of times small accounts. So there, you know, there was a few different stays that I've seen who just, like, expressed small disappointment and got like 100 comments of people just saying awful shit to them. Just awful, discompassionate, terrible shit to them. And this was like a person with like 5 followers, right? And that's usually what happens. Um, and then there's the disinformation campaign, which we're going to talk about after I take a break. I'm going to go do some work. I'm going to chill out a little bit, because this is going to really suck to talk about. It makes me very emotional to see the way that the queer community is being treated. And again, I knew this was going to happen, but I feel just devastated at how much other people are hurting and weren't expecting this level of nastiness. Trying not to feel responsible for it. Well, lots of people have told me I'm not. I'm not actually. I don't actually feel responsible for this, but you know, I recognize that I was one of the catalytic forces for the discourse that's happening right now. And I recognize that there's like a responsibility that comes with that, and I'm just owning that responsibility and that accountability. Yeah, so I'll be back. If you have not watched my disinformation video about Hunlix, I might recommend it because I'm probably going to be referring back to it because I don't want to just like go through the same shit again. I know it's long, but like this video has also been long. You don't need to, I guess, but I don't. It's going to be a very off the cuff conversation, so I don't know how much I'll be talking about with it. Be back soon. The lighting will be different. Hello, I'm back, and both the lighting and my hair are different, which is exciting, I guess, or something. Let's talk about disinformation. Yeah. So, in order to do this, I'm going to discuss a little bit more of exactly what went down on Threads this week and what is still going down on Threads and what I assume will continue to go down on Threads because I'm a problem. Like me specifically. That's okay. So, people went to the London Day One concert, and one of my friends who was going to go to the Day Two concert sort of said, like, God, I really hope that they don't bring up Harry Potter Day Two. I guess at least if they do, like, I'll get a bathroom break. And I was like, oh, did they? I guess that makes sense. They were in London. Did they? And they were like, and you know, we sort of watched the Ments, and there was some, yeah, like they spent like 15 minutes on Harry Potter jokes or whatever. I don't know how long they actually spent. I did not watch those Ments. Honestly, I haven't watched much concert footage because it's been fucking hell. It's been a really rough weekend. It's been a rough 4 days. 5 days, whatever. And I was like, we gotta figure out a way to like let them know that like every time this happens, we all gotta be like, oh, not again. Now when so Giant was my first comeback that I was a stay for the whole thing for, which means Hop was my first Korean comeback. And I sort of poked the edges of the discourse a little bit at that point, about the Harry Potter line. Walking on Water had other controversies that I think were in the public eye a little bit more. And at the time, I had a fairly small Threads following, and it was pretty clear that this was not really part of the discourse. So I didn't poke it too hard. I sort of hoped that by having the Harry Potter line, there was some conversation around it. Like maybe at some point this would get back to them, and it just didn't. And it clearly hasn't for years, right? So I was like, I sort of posted out to Threads, like, hey, let's talk about the Harry Potter thing, but like, let's talk about specifically, like, what does it take for us to educate them, to make sure they do know, because like this is the only thing that makes them not feel like a safe space to queer people. And it's really important. So as I mentioned, and this is going to bring into the disinformation piece, right? Harry Potter has become a dog whistle for a lot of gender critical like TERFs, right? And so I talked a lot about Gamergate in my last disinformation video, and I'm going to bring it up here too, because as I mentioned, Gamergate really set the, the blueprint of how to do online disinformation campaigns and harassment campaigns. And it also really shows us how bad they can get. Because while the J.K. Rowling disinformation campaign online has gotten really, really bad, what J.K. Rowling is doing with her money is about as bad, if not worse, as what the Gamergate people were doing with their money. You know, J.K. Rowling and Steve Bannon are very similar in some ways. Or like J.K. Rowling and Milo Yiannopoulos, whatever the fuck his name is. In Gamergate era, we had, when people talk about block lists today, like block lists are apparently this controversial thing these days, which is very funny to me because my interpretation of what a lot of block lists these days look like is like screenshotting people and like making a block list tag and being like, I think you should block these people. And it's like, okay, you have the choice to look at those screenshots and decide if you're going to block them or not. And like, yeah, that can sort of become harassment. I'm not on Twitter as much to see what happens on Twitter, but like people freak out about it. I don't because in Gamergate era, we had auto block lists, right? We had scripts that would run that would basically be like, anybody who's following this person, block them. Anyone who's following Steve Bannon, block them. And people did get caught up in these, right? Like there were people on block lists who, you know, were following just to like see what they were saying, or, you know, sometimes journalists or things like that. But it was mostly understood that like we had to do this because it was dangerous, especially people like speaking out, like talking about things. It was dangerous to not do this. In order for marginalized communities to protect themselves, you can't assume innocent until proven guilty. You just can't, especially on the internet, because like that's how you get sea lioned, that's how you get abused, that's how you get negged, that's how you get into a radicalization pipeline. So yeah, there were block lists in the thousands. I think there was one block list that was literally like 10,000 people, and it was a script. Right? This was not a go through a bunch of people posting on a block list. This was a script. So you need, when you are part of a marginalized group that is being attacked, you need to preemptively protect yourself, right? This is true in real life, and it's true on the internet. I fairly rarely block on Threads because Threads is a small community, and I like to keep an eye on things. I like to know what's going on in the darkest parts of the community, and it is dark. There are some stays out there who, I mean, I've seen. I'm sure that anybody who's paid attention has seen some dark shit, but I've seen some truly, truly dark shit out there. You know, a lot of people have this belief of like, well, a hard right Trump supporter wouldn't be a Stray Kids fan. They absolutely would be. They absolutely would be. There are absolutely like Trump supporting fans who will go out of their way to harass like queer people and women, and I mean some of them are women, like there are some people out there who will really, really hit hard into, like, I have seen stays promote trans conversion therapy. Like, I've seen wild things in the darkest parts of threads. And not like wild as in, just like the way they stand the kids, like in, saucing behavior or whatever. I mean just like how they interact with the world. Um so for like most people who uh are not as well protected as I am not a very vulnerable person, right? Like I'm a little bit older. I'm not that old, but like I'm in my 30s, right? I'm not in my 20s. I'm not a teenager. I have a following. I have like very clearly a large community in real life. There's a number of things that make me not as vulnerable in the way that like K-pop stans would do things. Um, Again, if this were as violent as Gamergate, if K-pop were as just like, if the bad actors in K-pop were as violently horrific as the bad actors in Gamergate, this would be a very different conversation. But as it is, like, I'm not very vulnerable to the types of people who are in K-pop spaces. So I can sort of keep an eye on things, and I don't have to worry too much about being a danger. But for a lot of people, right, like, I understand that doing so puts me at risk. And most people understand that doing so puts them at risk. So it is just like sane behavior to, if people are talking actively about Harry Potter, you have to look at that and be like, it is possible this person is a TERF. It's possible this person is a TERF, or that they are mask off, right? That they are not actively like pro-trans genocide, but they don't really care that much, they're going to be bystanders. They're going to be apathetic, and that's just that's like, I mean, that's just as bad very often, especially if they're really coming at you about it. Like if they're really saying it. I had this conversation with a few people where they were like, I'm not going to stop openly loving Harry Potter just because you say so. And I'm like, okay, so you're admitting that it is more important to you to openly love Harry Potter than it is for you to listen to the way that it's impacting trans people. And they're like, I said what my beliefs are. J.K. Rowling is a terrible person, but that has nothing to do with Harry Potter. And I was like, so you are openly admitting, like, it is a yes or no thing. I clarified my beliefs. No, you didn't. This is a yes or no question. This is like this is the value statement you're putting out there. And just like the cognitive dissonance, they're not willing to do that, right? So and a lot of those people will be the same people who will be like, well, stray kids aren't going to be transphobes, and they'll say that they're not transphobes, and they don't understand that they themselves are just as dangerous to not just genderqueer but queer people, because again, this does not stop at like trans people is where they've found their like niche thing. It doesn't mean it stops there. That's always the case with increasing authoritarianism. You find the scapegoat group to start with, and then you get to do more fascism to everybody else later. Like we know how the Holocaust happened. We've all read the poem, right? No one was there. When they came for, I wasn't there. When they came for, I wasn't there. When they came for, I wasn't there. When they came for me, no one was there, right? That's how it works. That is the cycle. I don't know what to tell you if you don't believe me on that one. You're wrong. So we have this really intense cognitive dissonance that comes up, and people really just don't understand that, like, we don't know if this is a dog whistle or not. And we also don't know if people know it's a dog whistle, but they just don't care. If they're like, well, it's a dog whistle for other people, but it's not a dog whistle for me. Like, I don't believe that, so it's fine. It's not a dog whistle for me. And it's like, well, now hold on. That's not how this works. You cannot just say well, I dislike that. I dislike that belief. I don't believe that. So whatever I do is fine. That's not praxis. That's just you saying shit in order to like clear your conscience. Um, so I go on threads and I'm like, hey, we need to make sure we need to figure out some way to feel really confident that they do know this information, so that ideally like they just stop doing the harmful thing. Um, and I do think that's likely, but we need to be able to make a determination for ourselves about you know how much this group who we love and we stand and we want to believe uh, cares about the most marginalized of us, but we don't know them. We don't know these people. We don't know their beliefs. Um, we need to be able to make that determination for ourselves. So how do we do that? And I think that what I just described was a long, rambly, like background in the back of my head information type of thing. I think I put out that thread quite kindly and quite um, thoroughly discussing the issue. And a lot of people agreed. I had sort of asked, like, do people have any thoughts on how to do this? I could write a letter, I suppose, and like some little things, but like, does anybody else have any thoughts? And basically everybody was like, well, if there were some way to do this, then I would join. And I was like, okay, fine. Well, I guess I will volunteer. So I sat down, I spent a few hours writing out the letter that I read and finding the sources and doing all that. And I screenshot the letter. Like I got some feedback before I screenshotted it from some trans folks, some genderqueer folks. And then I screenshot it and I put it on threads. And I was like, I'd love any feedback, but here's the letter that I'm thinking about. At around the same time, there were some other people kind of coming out and being like, yeah, this made me really uncomfy because this was like the day after or 2 days after London Day One. I don't really remember. It it was during the Day Two concert. Actually, I know it was during the Day Two concert because there were people kind of asking, like, has anybody seen any Harry Potter references yet today? So I was doing that while the Day Two concert was going on, and some other people were coming out being like, does anyone else feel uncomfy by this? And they were just getting slammed with shenanigans. People kind of started responding. I got a couple weird responses, but like mostly some really positive responses. But other people started kind of coming out in support of this, right? Like it was being a discussion. I really want to emphasize that everybody I saw, and I've heard that there were a couple other comments that, like, from some other people that were legitimately problematic, but I'm going to get to those when, again, talking about disinformation soon. Literally everybody I saw was like, we should figure out how to get the kids educated on this, right? Like, I cannot emphasize how much I did not see a single person being like, I can't believe the kids would be talking about Harry Potter. Fuck stray kids. I'm unstanding. I can't believe that they're like this, right? I don't see any of that. I'm sure that there were a couple people who said that, and maybe one of them even believed it. But then, this is Harry Potter. Harry Potter is possibly the most divisive topic on the internet right now. There is a lot of similarities to Gamergate, and that's because the way the disinformation campaign happened was exactly the same, right? J.K. Rowling started out with women in sports, and that worked. Like, it worked as a pull issue, and it worked to start radicalizing people. If you bring up Harry Potter, you get bullshit. Period. End of story. I'm really glad that apparently this conversation isn't happening on Twitter, because that would be a hellscape of unknown levels. I mean, I don't want it on Twitter. Thank fuck it's not on Twitter. Maybe saying that it gets on Twitter. I don't know. I don't have many subscribers though. I don't think it does. I don't want it on Twitter. Anytime you bring up Harry Potter, it gets bullshit, and that's because Rowling and gender critical feminists have done a really, really excellent job of building a radicalization pipeline. And they're leveraging this like nostalgia media in order to do so. And they are also leveraging inherent biases against trans people. So there has been a very, very, very long-standing bias about trans people for being like liars, for being overdramatic, for being oversensitive, for being angry, for being punishing. It's very similar to how like feminists were spoken about again during Gamergate, and prior to that on the internet, right? Like the blue-haired feminist. It's like almost the exact same rhetoric, and the exact same type of biasing that, you know, the social justice warriors are now out for stray kids. I saw somebody unironically say SJW this weekend. Okay. I've not seen someone unironically talking about social justice warriors in like a minute. Asinine. But like, yeah, same exact rhetoric. So we're leveraging these biases that trans people will trap you, lie to you, bait you, groom you, hurt you, and that trans people will over dramatize anything. What ended up happening is that people started talking about like, oh, I'm seeing so much Harry Potter discourse. Let's not hate on the kids. Well, nobody was doing that. That was, I don't know where that narrative came from. I don't know where that story came from. It is possible that somebody saw like one thread and made a sub tweet, like a sub thread of that thread. But the thing was, 99% of people talking about this were being super reasonable. And so what it just looks like is both. It looks like people talking about this, maybe they're being unreasonable and you don't know about this. And from our perspective, it looks like you're just making shit up. Really what's happening is that they're ignoring the vast majority of the criticism, right? Like, again, it's a bias issue. They're seeing the one thing that makes them upset and targeting that rather than the influx of reasonable articulated stances. Or they just see people being like, fuck Harry Potter, support trans people. And they're reading, right? Like they're not reading what's being said. They're reading what they think is being implied, which is, and thus also fuck stray kids. Which is not what anyone's saying. Now, I did hear talk. I have not seen screenshots. I have not seen receipts. I did see, you know, somebody I like did claim that they saw hate about stray kids, and I was like, can you tell me more? Because I have not seen this, but I have been hearing this narrative, and I don't know if this is a fully made up narrative or if like just somehow super out of my sphere of being very in this problem. Like Threads algorithm is feeding me non-stray kids related Harry Potter trans things now, and I'm having to tell it to stop doing that again because I've worked very hard to keep this discourse out of my life, but like now it's in my life, right? And they didn't have any screenshots. I had already blocked the people. They said that they saw some people basically saying like, what do you expect from transphobic Korean men? And some people saying like, oh gosh, I don't remember the other one, but it actually kind of read like somebody potentially on the other side. It was like, God, I don't even remember. I remember that both of them, though, very much read not like people acting in good faith. So we have to remember, when there is a massive disinformation campaign with a lot of harassment, there are liars, right? There are people being purposefully malicious and purposefully deceptive. I don't think that people acting in good faith, most people acting in good faith who are, you know, anti-transgenocide, are not going to be so brazenly racist as to say, like, what do you expect from transphobic Korean men? That is someone stirring up shit. Like, 99% chance that someone's stirring up shit or trying to stir up shit, and successfully, apparently, right? And the other post read very similarly too. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a line that I was like, this is not like a pro-trans rights line. This is a line just of somebody trying to make it seem like we hate stray kids now. And we don't. That's not what's happening. Nobody's trying to cancel stray kids. That's not what's going on. We also started to see a lot of posts of people being like, I'm really tired of seeing Harry Potter discourse. Which is a little bit of like the misinformation colliding with the disinformation, colliding with the like political apathy. Because how do you think we feel? Like, you think I'm having a great fucking week? You think I'm thrilled to be spending my time on this? No, I don't want to spend my fucking time on this. I'm a therapist. Do you know how much time I spend on bullshit like this? Like, do you know how much time I spend on working? Like, I'm a therapist who specializes in autistic queer clients. I spend so much time and energy already as my profession helping people deal with shit like this. This is not how I want to spend my free time. It does not make me feel good. It feels awful. You know, I have a number of friends who are like, I need to get off Threads right now. Like, I need to leave this space that is usually my safe space, that is usually my safe community, because I can't fucking do this. I have so many screenshots of people doubling and tripling down on Harry Potter, on people like really just assuming, like making up stories about us saying certain things or expecting certain things. And like, it's a lot. And again, it's really based on these biases, right? It's based on a combination of purposeful disinformation, of misinformation, right? There's misinformation that ends up happening there. The reason why I say it's part of the like disinformation requires people to be accidentally perpetuating misinformation. The misinformation in things like, I'm really tired of the Harry Potter discourse or whatever, is this idea that is purposefully disinformed and then becomes misinformed, that these conversations have happened already, or that this is like old news, or that these conversations have been happening for more than like 24 hours. It's also often based in misinformation about how bad the problem is. So a lot of people are very, very unaware of how bad the Harry Potter problem is. And I'm going to tell you right now, the letter that I read does not remotely cover how bad the problem is. I was not going to dig that deep into it. It does not remotely cover how bad the problem is. And so there's like this disinformed downplaying of how intense the problem is and the consequences and the ultimate goals of the problem. Right. Again, you can even look at the wording of like the JK Fund or Women for Scotland or things like that. It is purposeful disinformation because it's proposing itself as like these female spaces. So it's using the language of liberation in order to oppress people. Because the goal of it is not to uplift women, it's to eliminate trans women, which eventually results in eliminating trans people, which eventually results, you know, in further queerphobic directions, and other queer genocide, right? Like, we already see that Stonewall, they took out trans recently, but then they also recently took out bisexual, right? because of course, multi-attracted people were always going to come next. And guess what? After multi-attracted people, it's going to be the LGs, right? Like, so congratulations to the lesbian and gay folks who are biphobic and transphobic and queerphobic. You're fucked. You're fucked because none of us are going to protect you. We're going to protect each other. We're going to protect each other. We're going to make sure we're fine, but we're not going to fucking protect y'all. We're not going to protect the cis people who do not give a shit. We're not going to protect the cishet people who haven't given a shit. I will protect a cishet ally who has actually worked hard to be a good ally long before I'll protect a like cissexist, biphobic lesbian out here like diminishing anyone who's not gold star. Like I'm not going to work hard for that person over a person who's actually like giving to a community and putting their bodies on the line and, you know, putting their own vulnerability on the line, right? Like, fuck that. A lot of people don't get that. Like a lot of people do not understand how genocide works, how it plays out. But when there is that level of disinformation, right? When there is that level, like there's always something wrong. If somebody's hiding something behind the language of liberation, there's a reason they're hiding it, you know? So the diminishing of how much Harry Potter itself is monetarily going to result in global catastrophe for queer people, because the UK and the US like work closely in this. The way that the UK does, you know, obviously the UK is not just England too. The whole thing with this ruling was that like this was based on a Scottish ruling trying to protect genderqueer people, that now has been shut down, right? So like Scotland and Ireland are dramatically impacted, and you know anything the UK government does. Um, uh, Scandinavia tends to have a large impact. You know, the UK may not be part of the EU anymore, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a huge geopolitical impact, right? Um, so you diminish how bad the situation is, and that creates the misinformation pipeline that like people are too sensitive. They don't need to care about this so much. It doesn't matter, right? We go back to Gamergate. This is what the It's About Ethics in Game Journalism is, right? So we've diminished the actual problem to not be about misogyny, rape culture, um, misogynoir, racism, you know, queerphobia. We've diminished the problem. We've watered it down to be about ethics in game journalism. And now, if you're freaking out about Gamergate or Zoe Quinn or whatever, you are hyperbolizing. You are over dramatizing the situation. You are the problem. So that's part of being, I would say that anytime you have an instinct to be like, I'm really tired of seeing X discourse that does not directly impact me, you need to ask yourself if you're part of a misinformation pipeline. Like, you might be the patsy being used to perpetuate misinformation, as part of originally disinformation. So this disinformation pipeline hits Threads pretty fast. And now it's partially a harassment campaign. Luckily, Threads is a small community. Once people start blocking people, it becomes a lot easier, right? Like, a lot of people are commenting on the same posts. So if somebody makes a really vile post, and there have been some pretty vile posts, you know, one of the ones that was really going around that was rough, and has become somewhat infamous is one. Thanks, Ambi. Fire truck. It's a fire truck. Thanks, fire truck. Is one that read something like, I'm going to put on my Harry Potter pajamas while eating Chick-fil-A and reading Chinese BL dramas just to piss everybody off. So Chick-fil-A donates to like trans conversion camps, which have been qualified as torture. Like, it's not funny. And, you know, especially considering what's going on right now with Chinese erotica artists. So, what you're saying in that post is essentially like what I think is funny is trans genocide, making fun of people who are concerned about it. And I'm going to try to prove that I'm still a good liberal by reading BL. But all you're doing is admitting that you're fetishizing BL, right? Like, if you hate queer people that much, you know, you hate gay people who Chick-fil-A donates a lot of money to trying to eradicate. Like, you had so much contempt for queer people, but you're going to read BL because you're still progressive or whatever. You're just fetishizing MLMs and probably Asian ones at that. Cool, good job. Proud of you. Lots of people commenting positively on that post, thinking it was really funny, thinking it was really, really funny. Talking about other places that donate to anti-queer organizations that they'll go shop at. A lot of people still interacting with that person's posts, right? A lot of my mutuals were really upset to discover how many of their mutuals liked that post, commented on that post, thought it was a grand old time. Yeah, so once the disinformation and misinformation pipelines hit, it just becomes about making fun of people who are upset, which of course makes people more upset, right? Like I've been saying to people, I'm not mad at Stray Kids. I'm fucking mad at stays right now. And there are a lot of stays that I don't even know about mad because I was expecting this, right? Harry Potter is the thing that makes people go most mask off. If you want to test how mask off somebody goes, talk to them about Harry Potter and see what they say. That's like, that is the thing. They will be great allies up until that point. So I'm not surprised at all. I don't even know that I'm disappointed. I'm just fucking tired. But I know a lot of my mutuals were really surprised to discover how many of their mutuals they had to block. And then, of course, once you start doing that, the disinformation pipeline rehits. It's a perpetuating cycle because the victim blaming comes in, right? People start going like, I was only disappointed in Stray Kids, but now this is like an actual problem that like I hope they address because stays are being bigots against other stays. And then people start doing the like, well, if you didn't bitch in the first place, nobody would have been talking about it, which is victim blaming. But it also creates another loop of the over dramatized disinformation cycle. So it'll die down soon. Unless the kids do address it, in which case things will get bad again. It would still die down soon after that, but yeah. Anyway, so I think I've pretty thoroughly gone over what happened, how we got here. Where we are right now is kind of, I think we're at kind of a bit of stability at the moment that will destabilize again once I start disseminating this letter and telling people how to disseminate it themselves. But hopefully this is just handled soon. and we don't have to worry about this anymore. I'd really like not to worry about this anymore. I haven't thought about J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter in the whole nightmare in so long, and I'd like to not think about it again. Yeah, in more fun news, I'm gonna start live reacting to Two Kids Room because that seems like better content to have on my channel. Okay, that's all. Talk to you next time, and hopefully it's more fun and I can stop talking about disinformation fucking pipelines. I'm so tired of discourse. Ah! Bye.